He put it in so deep. Reddit cheating stories, a true tale of infidelity. He put it in so deep, and that's when everything fell apart. Those 6 words from a Reddit confession grabbed the internet's attention, and for good reason. What started as a seemingly harmless connection spiraled into betrayal, guilt, and heartbreak, revealing a truth most of us fear to face. Cheating isn't always about lust, it's about loneliness, attention, and the cracks in a marriage no one notices until it's almost too late. The writer, using a throwaway account, explained that she had been married for 4 years. She described her relationship as comfortable but fading at the edges, like a sweater once soft and warm that slowly begins to pill, thread, and loosen without you noticing until it's nearly falling apart. She and her husband weren't fighting all the time, but they also weren't connecting. Their conversations had become short. Their intimacy felt scripted. And the little moments, staying up late talking, laughing over small things, touching just because, those had quietly disappeared. Then came Evan. That wasn't his real name, she clarified, but it was close enough. A coworker. Charming in a subtle way, not flashy or loud, but always present. He listened, and not in a performative way, he really listened. When she talked about her projects, he asked follow-up questions. When she mentioned her dog's vet appointment, he remembered to ask how it went. When she confessed she felt burned out at work, he didn't tell her to just push through, he suggested she take a mental health day. That was how it started. Not with flirting, not with late-night texts, not with anything scandalous. It started with attention. And attention, she wrote, is sometimes more dangerous than temptation. Weeks went by and small things piled up. They started having lunch together. They'd laugh in ways she hadn't laughed in months. She would go home to her husband, but her mind kept wandering back to Evan. She tried to shake it off. She convinced herself it was harmless, a phase, a silly little crush like people get sometimes. But deep down, she said, she knew better. The moment everything changed happened during a late project. She and Evan were the last 2 in the office. Rain hammered against the windows, and the power flickered twice. They were packing up when she dropped her folder, papers spilling everywhere. They both bent to pick them up at the same time, and she said something in her chest shifted, an ache, a longing, a realization she didn't want to admit. He touched her hand by accident. Just a touch. But she froze. She said she should have walked away right then. Instead, she didn't move. He whispered her name. He didn't kiss her. He didn't pull her closer. He just said her name like it meant something. That was all it took. They didn't cross a physical line that night, but the emotional line had already been destroyed. She went home, stared at her husband asleep on the couch, and felt a guilt so heavy she couldn't breathe. But guilt doesn't always stop people, it sometimes pushes them deeper. A week later, she and Evan ended up alone again. This time it wasn't accidental. They both knew what they were doing, even if nobody said it out loud. She described the moment in the vaguest possible terms because, as she wrote, it wasn't about the physical part, it was about the way it made me feel. She wasn't graphic, she didn't provide details, but she made one thing very clear: the moment it happened, she felt like she had crossed a line she could never come back from. That was when, in her words, he put it in so deep emotionally, not physically, and it broke something in me. She stressed that the connection wasn't about lust. It was about feeling seen, desired, understood. The depth wasn't physical. It was emotional. It was the realization that she felt more connected to someone she barely knew than to her own husband. But the guilt became unbearable. Her husband wasn't perfect, but he wasn't cruel. He wasn't distant because he didn't care. He was distant because he thought she was fine. He thought life was fine. He thought they were fine. And she had never told him otherwise. She felt responsible. She felt like the villain of her own story. One night she decided she had to tell him. She described the moment in painful detail, him sitting on the edge of the bed, her standing because she couldn't bring herself to sit down. She told him she had grown close to someone else. She admitted they had crossed a line. She said she didn't know what she wanted, only that what she'd done was wrong. Her husband didn't yell. Didn't throw anything. Didn't call her names. He just went quiet in a way she had never seen. He asked one question, "Do you love him?" She told Reddit she didn't know the answer. And that was worse. He left the room. Packed a bag slowly, methodically, like he was afraid that if he rushed he might break. She tried to follow him, tried to explain, but he kept repeating, "I just need space." Days passed. He stayed with his brother. She stayed in the house surrounded by memories that suddenly felt like ghosts. She said the silence became louder than their old arguments ever were. Evan tried to reach out, but she told him she couldn't talk. Not now. Maybe not ever. Her husband eventually returned not to reconcile, but to talk. They sat at the kitchen table, the same place they'd eaten countless dinners together. He told her he still loved her, but he didn't know if he could trust her. She said she understood. He asked if she still wanted the marriage. She said she did. She wrote that she meant it with all her heart. He agreed to try counseling. Not because he forgave her, but because he wasn't ready to let the marriage die. The post ended with a line that stuck with everyone reading, "I thought cheating was about passion. It wasn't. It was about loneliness." The top comments were a mix of sympathy, anger, heartbreak, and hard truth. Some told her she didn't deserve her husband. Some told her the marriage could be saved. Others warned her that emotional affairs cut deeper than physical ones. But the story didn't end with a perfect resolution. She updated the post only once, saying they were still in therapy, still trying, still hurting, but also still showing up. She called it the hardest chapter of our marriage. Her final words were simple, "If you're feeling lonely, talk to the person you promised your life to. Don't talk to the person who makes you forget why you made that promise." It's a story many Reddit users couldn't stop thinking about, not because of the drama, but because of how real it felt. It wasn't a wild scandal or a soap opera twist. It was something more familiar, more human. A reminder that relationships rarely fall apart suddenly. They crack slowly, quietly, until one day someone steps through the broken pieces and realizes they're standing somewhere they never meant to be. And that's what made this cheating story hit harder than most, not the shock, but the truth hiding underneath it.